In section 10.3, we are going to be testing means, and when we deal with a mean, we will be using a t-test. And in the very first problem, it asks you to determine critical values, and it gives you 3 different ones that they want you to calculate. When you find critical value, you have to know your level of significance and you have to know your degrees of freedom. If they do not give you the degrees of freedom, the degrees of freedom is n-1. So on the first problem, it says determine the critical value or values with a right tail test of a population mean. Notice it's talking about the mean when alpha is 0.01 level of significance with the degrees of freedom of 10. So when we go to draw this out, notice it's a right tail, so we're going to have shading over on the right side. This is what it's talking about, shading on the right. The alpha is 0.01 and the degrees of freedom is 10. So to do this, you will go into StatCrunch, you'll go to calculator, and you will go to T. And let me move this over so we can see it. So our degrees of freedom is 10. Our alpha, it says to do a right tail, so we need to make this greater. And alpha is, in this particular 1.01. And then we compute, and we find our t-value, which in this case is 2.764, and it's positive because it's on the right side. So it's 2.764. Okay, and so notice that's going to be our first one, and it's a positive because it's on the right side. Now part B says determine the critical value with a left tail test of a population mean. Alpha is 0.05, level of significance. Notice it says based on a sample of size 20. So in this problem, notice left tail, we're going to shade on this side. Okay, this side, left tail. N is 20, so our degrees of freedom is n-1. We'll use 19. So we're going to this. Our degrees of freedom is 19. It's n-1. We're doing a left tail, so we're doing this. Take this out. And then our alpha is 0.05. And we're going to compute. And notice we will get, let's see, a negative 1.729. That's what we end up with a t-value. And notice it's negative because it's on the left side. So our critical value is negative 1.729. Okay, this is the one that's a little different than what we've been using. Determine the critical value for a two-tail test. And it says alpha is 0.05 and your level of significance is 16. For some reason, the between does not work on this, on our t-test. So what we have to do is we actually have to go and divide alpha in half. So we have to divide it by 2 because it's 2 tails. And when we do, we get 0.025, 0.025. Okay, so we are going to our calculator, our degrees of freedom. In this one, it said we had 16 as our n, so our degrees of freedom will be 15. So we'll put in 15. We can use a less than. That'll be fine. It does not matter which side we do. We'll do this. And then I'm going to put in my alpha, where I split it in half, I'm going to put in 0.025 and compute. But I got to remember I'm doing 2 tails, so I have to do a plus and a minus. So in this I get 2.131. So in my problem I have a negative 2.131 and a positive 2.131. And so there's a plus minus on this so that you can do that. So that's how you find your critical t-values.